when we started off, we did a lot of research to see the major points that a lot of newcomers face, and there were about 16 major hurdles that a lot of newcomers face. So from finding accommodation to exchanging currencies to the Canadian dollars to finding a job that can help pay the bills when they're here, and also just exploring your destination. We decided to, of course, there were other things around healthcare, getting a daycare for your kids, what are the best things to buy in regards to weather, because I mean so many people buy some winter jackets from countries that have never seen winter before, right? They get here and those things are useless. So part of what we're trying to do is also just save people that extra expense. So we decided to pick the top four which you mentioned, and accommodation was one of the biggest ones on that, because I mean, irrespective of what you're coming to Canada for, right? Especially if you're coming in the winter, you definitely need a roof over your head before you start to think about any other thing. So we decided to pick up accommodation as the very first thing to try and tackle and to try and solve for newcomers. And luckily for us, we were able to establish an early adopters program with one of the biggest property management companies in all of Atlantic Canada, and they're called Killam. So Killam Properties, they have over 20,000 accommodations around Canada. So we did a very first we built a process that helps that newcomers now tender their study permits, their visas in place of their, and of course, bank statements from their home countries in place of the Canadian landlord reference or a credit score.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Bridge Podcast, and thanks to each and every single one of you that come back every single week to listen, learn, and grow. Now, you all know how exciting it is to pack up your bags, say your goodbyes, and travel across the world to start life in a new country. But the thing you often don't realize is that there are some unique challenges that you will encounter in your new country. Now, each week on this podcast, I either talk to the leader of an organization that provides settlement and integration services, or I talk to an individual whose story and mission and purpose is super inspiring and exciting, and I want to get them to share with you. My guest today checks both boxes. My guest today is Tosin Ajibola. He is a top 25 Canadian Immigrant Award recipient for 2022. He is the co-founder of a company called Welkom-U. And that company pretty much, you know how when you pack your bags and you come into a new country and you start to wonder, like, where am I going to stay? What am I going to do? Like, there's so many questions you have no idea how to answer. Well, his organization solves those problems. And it's my honor to have you here today, Tosin. It's an absolute honor to have you on my platform. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Ida. I'm super excited to be here. Happy holidays. Super exciting end of the year, and I'm excited to be here on this podcast.
Thank you for being here. So the thing I want to get started with is your own personal story. I know you came to Canada as a student and then you ended up being here. And part of the reason why you founded this company is in part your own experience as a newcomer to Canada. Can you share with us that and what led to the creation of Welkom-U?
Okay, I mean it's a story that I'm always very excited to share. I mean, of course, right now, but not at the time when I faced a lot of the issues that brought me here today. So I made the decision to move to Canada in 2017 actually, and I got admitted to two schools in Canada, one in Ontario, in Ottawa, Ontario, and the other one, University of New Brunswick. I applied for my study permit, and you know how it goes sometimes. I didn't get it the first time, so I reapplied in 2018 and early 2019, and I was lucky enough to get it in the spring of that year. So of course, I started planning for Canada, doing a lot of research, you know, trying to figure out what it was like, what life was like in Canada. At that point, of course, I knew how big Canada was, but I honestly didn't know the actual extent, right? And I had so many friends around who were telling me a lot of things about Canada, like guys in Calgary are telling you about Canada, guys in Ottawa, guys in Toronto, guys in Montreal, and you just figure out, oh yeah, it's Canada. I mean, it's the same thing, right?
Mm.
But I got here in August, and I started to see the differences within the different provinces, the different areas where you live, and it was super tough to even first of all find a place to stay. Right, you have people who had it super easy when they came, right? Because I mean, the process in the city where they're in is not as difficult as other areas, right? I started hearing stories of people who had to pay 6 months upfront rent, which was a whole lot of money. Oh yeah, we had
In
so
Canada?
many of those. Oh yes, in Canada, okay. It's happening in some parts of Toronto today. You don't
Wow.
have up to 6 months upfront, especially as a newcomer without a credit score, right?
Yeah.
You will be subject to paying that, and so many people squatting for so many months. But anyways, I was super lucky, right? I had a friend who was in University of New Brunswick, and she was able to get me an accommodation before I came. So I experienced how seamless it was coming from the airport because I spent a few weeks in Ottawa before I came here, and I experienced how seamless it was to come directly from the airport to my room. And I had so many other stories, so many other people, and I appreciated what that friend had done for me. And a week into my program, I met Michael, who's the chief operating officer at Welkom-U, and he came into classes with his suitcases,
Hmm.
right? Because he didn't have anywhere to go, and that pretty much just validated what that problem was. And after Michael, there were so many others in my class who were international students who had the same issue. And unfortunately for them, the accommodation on campus was a little it was expensive, I'll say a little pricey, and also even at some points there was no availability at all, right? So they had to figure out how to live off campus and satisfy a lot of the rental um, requirements that there are out there, right? So they're asking you for your credit score, your Canadian landlord's reference, and these are
Hmm.
things that you do not have. So I pretty much just, of course, alongside my co-founding team, we started brainstorming ways that we can make this a whole lot easier. And we did so much research, and it takes about 3 to 5 years for the average newcomer to settle down into Canada. And I mean, one of the biggest pain points was finding accommodation or even knowing what next to do, right? Because you're coming to a new life,
Yeah.
right? You're not sure what you need to do first. We had people go to the bank first, and you're like, oh, you know what? I want to deposit all the money we came with in cash, and you're like, oh, where's your phone number or where's your social insurance number? And you're like, what are those things, right? So pretty
Yeah.
much just knowing that roadmap, as simple as I need to get my phone number first, my social insurance number, and then go to the bank to open up all your banking products. Very simple things, and a lot of people didn't know these things, right? So we just pretty much decided to build a product that can help people more easily, like access some of these services or even know what they need to do immediately they arrive. Because there's a language barrier as well. There's also that fear of asking the wrong questions or not knowing who to ask the right questions. And we figured out, I mean, a lot of people use their mobile devices, right? So they can always ask. I mean, a lot of people Google stuff very easily, and unfortunately, how Google works is pretty much around the search engine optimization. So you might see keywords of organizations that are not close to you, right? You might
Right.
Google settlement and something in Toronto that's popping up because those are the guys that have the big bucks to pay.
Yes.
So we decided to build something that kind of narrows down to whatever city it is that you're in, and you can get the right information for that particular location where you're at. So that's pretty much the value that we try to. It's not something that's not available on the internet, but also just ensuring that the accessibility to that right information that is for Montreal, that is for New Brunswick, that is for Calgary, for Manitoba is at your fingertips, and you're not doing the wrong thing. So that's pretty much a very high level and very quick story as to why we decided to start up this organization.
I think what you guys are doing is really priceless because when I landed on your website, I put myself back in the shoes of being a newcomer and just arriving here. Like you, I was very fortunate that when I got here, I had somebody who was hosting me. But truth be told, okay, so I took my flight from Cameroon and I got to Morocco. It was Royal Air Morocco. So I got to Morocco
Okay.
and then the next flight was from Morocco to Canada. Up until the time when I was at Morocco, I didn't know where I was going to leave when I got into Canada. And
Wow.
so at Morocco, yeah. at Morocco, I knew I was coming to Montreal,
Yeah.
but I hadn't communicated with the person that I was going to be living with. But fortunately enough, my sister knew a friend here, and she had communicated with them to say, "Hey, Ida's coming. Can you guys pick her up from the airport?" And so it's at Morocco that they're communicating with me by internet to say, "Hey, okay, these people have agreed to host you, and so when you go, her husband is going to pick you up at the airport." I've never met them. I never seen a picture of them or anything. And so it was just going to be like, okay, when you get to the airport, somebody is going to call your name. And so hopefully that's the only person who knows your name at the airport, right? Because if the wrong
Yeah,
person calls you, then you're going with the wrong people.
absolutely.
But I was fortunate enough that I got that family to host me, just like you. But a lot of people don't have that. And so when I went onto your website, I put myself back into that place of being a newcomer and just knowing that there's a website where I could go to find not just accommodation, but affordable accommodation within the price range that a newcomer can afford.
Yeah, I mean, we just like you said, we validated a lot of this through research, but right now we're living the true experiences of a whole lot of newcomers. Um, we have people who land at the airport and don't even know what next to do. We've had people go to travel from one city. So I'm not sure how well the listeners know New Brunswick, but New Brunswick has three major cities. So there's Fredericton, there's St. John, and then there's Moncton. One of our customers landed in Fredericton, and unfortunately for him, he landed at the time there was a music festival in town. Every single hotel, every single Airbnb around here was occupied that was within his price range. He had to travel all the way to St. John to get an Airbnb, stay for a week, right?
Mhm.
Um, Try to reach out to landlords on Kijiji and the other platforms. He'll get some viewings, come down to Fredericton, and just like, oh, sorry, this is already rented out. We need your previous landlord's reference, and we just realized a whole lot of this struggle, and we were able to help anyways. We're able to help with that situation, but those are the struggles that a lot of people face. Just like you, there's so many people who come to the airport and are just hoping. We see the stress on their faces when they initially arrive, and they're like, "We hope there's somebody from Welkom-U here that that can assist us as they've communicated to us." So I mean, we're excited about building a tech company that uses technology to help settlement, but along the way, we realized that it's pretty much around the social impact that we're having on the lives of a lot of newcomers that have decided to take that move, because it's a really, really bold step going into a new environment without having anybody or knowing anybody. So yeah, it's been a great and rewarding journey for us.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So then the things that you offer then I see on your website is job search, you help with currency exchange, and you help with accommodation. Talk to me about what you do in each
Yeah.
of those areas.
So when we started off in 2020, actually, we did a lot of research to see the major points that a lot of newcomers um, face, and there were about 16 major hurdles that a lot of newcomers face. So from finding accommodation to exchanging currencies to the Canadian dollars to finding a job that can help pay the bills when they're here, and also just exploring your destination. And we decided to, of course, there were other things around healthcare, getting a daycare for your kids. What are the best things to buy in regards to weather? Because I mean, so many people buy some winter jackets from countries that have never seen winter before, right? And
I
expect.
did that. I was coming from Douala. I don't know if you know Douala in Cameroon, the hottest part
I
of the
do,
country.
yes. Right. So they get here and they've invested so much money in some of those things, right? And they get here and those things are useless, or they don't serve the purpose that they're supposed to, right? So part of what we're trying to do is also just save people that extra cost, that extra expense. So we decided to pick the top four which you mentioned, and accommodation was one of the biggest ones on that, because I mean, irrespective of what you're coming to Canada for, right? Especially if you're coming in the winter, you definitely need a roof over your head before you start to think about any other thing.
Yeah.
Right. So we decided to pick up accommodation as the very first thing to try and tackle and to try and solve for newcomers. And luckily for us, we were able to establish an early adopters program with one of the biggest property management companies in all of Atlantic Canada, and they're called Killam. So Killam Properties, they have over 20,000 accommodations around Canada. So we did a very first we built a process that helps that newcomers now tender their study permits, their visas in place of their, and of course, bank statements from their home countries, in place of the Canadian landlord reference or a credit score. We tested this out with Nigeria and India at the time. Because I mean, we had some reps in India who could help us verify the identities of these newcomers, and also some in Nigeria who could help us identify those. So that way, we stood in as guarantors for the newcomers as an organization, right, with Killam, and they were able to approve our very first set of customers to live in their apartments. And till this day, we've not had any issues whatsoever with those guys, because we realized that a lot of newcomers don't even want any stain on their record in Canada, right?
True.
Right. So there's a larger percentage of people who would not default, right? But unfortunately, just because they don't have credit history in Canada, they don't have access to some of the services. So over time, and I'm grateful for it, the mentality has started to change, knowing that these newcomers are actually really great people that we can rent out to, right? Because they have a goal coming into this country and they understand what can derail them from that. So they've actually been, I mean, we've gotten great feedback from a lot of the tenants that we've put in some of the accommodations around us being part of they pay rent on time. They try not to make any issues on the walls or even at the apartments. And it's been super helpful. So that's been it around accommodation, trying to create a new process where newcomers can apply for these things without having some of those requirements that have been mandated over the years. Because I mean, like, the world is pretty much COVID kind of brought the world into a small place. A lot of people travel to different places to work now, spend 6 months, 7 months, and with a lot of those red tapes or those requirements in terms of accommodation, a lot of people will probably not have the ability to rent in different areas. So we try to open that up, and that is doing super well. So that was it on the accommodation side. So currency exchange, super, super exciting feature as well. But unfortunately, we now have to drop that going into 2023 because it's a highly regulated space.
Okay, because it's like you're going into the financial markets, right? It's like,
Yeah,
I think Quebec
exactly.
is the,
So
okay.
Yep. So it's pretty much like going into fintech. And we realize that there's so many other ways we can achieve this by partnering with other organizations who have already been established to do this solely as their major focus, right? Because we looked at the pros and cons of building an entire financial system into our product or into our own company. And it made more sense for us to partner with other organizations. So we send a lot of customers today to the Lemonade app, to there's the Peer app as well, that already have the right certifications, the right requirements to be able to perform financial related transactions and the like. So we decided not to build that in-house and just leverage existing technology in that regard. So for jobs, we connected within campus, because I mean, I came in here, I was a working professional in Nigeria, and I mean, I saved up a lot of money, gave me at least some good runway, but I realized that the exchange rate was definitely not the best, right? So the amount of money that I thought was going to last me 6, 7, 8 months was probably going to get me only 4, 5 months through.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. So I got a job on campus at the university gym. And I mean, I was working only 20 hours a week, and I was able to make enough money for my rent and still have some change to for upkeep and a few other things. And I spoke with the hiring manager, and I'm like, look, I can get 20 students, international students who are coming in every semester, right? Every term. And I mean, they'll be happy to take on these jobs as well. And it's like, oh yeah, sure, absolutely. And that's pretty much how we started off finding jobs for students on campus, right? And also because we started to build that credibility for ourselves as an organization. The university recognizes us. I mean, we built a company out of the University of New Brunswick. We've been able to have it a whole lot easier. So you mentioned, oh, one of Welkom-U's customers, and I was sent here by this team. A lot of people have been able to secure on-campus jobs that have also helped them out with their daily upkeep, monthly upkeeps, and so on. So that was pretty much what we decided to do on the finding job as a student within campus. Just something that you're 100% sure that at least you're making enough money for your rent, or you're making enough money to be able to feed while in school. Because a lot of graduate students are people who probably even have families already, and were already earning, or they're even self-sponsored, right?
Yeah.
So there's probably no, this is on the graduate side now, probably no guidance sending you monthly income, monthly upkeep money. You have to cater for yourself, right? While also trying to get best out of your education. So sometimes it can be super, super tough because there's a lot of deliverables in school that you have to keep up with, and then also keeping up with the jobs or the financial aspect of things. So that's pretty much why we had that as one of the features. And the very last one was exploring your destination. To be successful in Canada, based on my experience, you need to understand what being in Canada is about. You need to understand the language of the locals so you can relate with them, right? You need to know what they do for fun. You need to know where to meet the right people, how to network. And we built that feature to help a lot of people understand what the top activities in their regions are. So, for example, the top activities you see um, in New Brunswick 100% be different from the top activities you see in Quebec,
Right.
right? Or the top activities you see in Ontario. That's because there are different attractions and there are different things that you can see. So, for example, in New Brunswick, a lot of people love to hike. A lot of people love to go to the Jazz and Harvest Blue festivals. Those are things, and those are the places where you can actually connect with the right people. You can connect with a larger demographic of people. But in Toronto, it might be different, right? It might
Yeah.
be, oh, Niagara Falls has the best heat map today, or this is where you meet the most people. So pretty much trying to narrow things down to the very location where you're in was what we had in mind, just to ensure that you're successful enough to meet the right people and have the right conversations, and understand what Canada is like. Because we did, oh well, 2020 was super interesting for us because we did a whole lot of research that year, and so many of the people who were newcomers that we were speaking with, from a lot of the open-ended questions that we asked, and the responses that a lot of them gave, we started to see a trend where, as a Nigerian or a Cameroonian, you tend towards other Cameroonians that are in that location, right? Or you tend
Yes.
towards only the Nigerians in that location, or you tend towards only the Indians in that location, right? And it doesn't do you the best service that you need at that time, right? Because Canada is blessed with so many cultures, so many people. And one thing that can help you grow here is understanding what the culture of the other people around you are like, right? That way you're able to explore even better, right? You're able to have different perspective about life because, I mean, for most of the immigrants, most people that are not extremely well traveled, right? A
Yeah.
lot of things has been based off the people around you, the society that you've been in, right?
True.
And it's 100% not applicable everywhere in the world that you go, right? So having that mentality of what exactly it is that you've grown up with and coming here and expecting it to be the same application, right? You might just be setting yourself up for failure at that point. So exploring a destination is a way that we're trying. I mean, we're still definitely doing a lot of work to optimize that. But there's one single essence of that is getting you to interact with areas that you're not familiar with, people that cultures that you're not familiar with, and obviously giving you that opportunity to learn and get that exposure that you need to be successful as an immigrant.
Wow. You guys, I mean, I've been writing down a lot of questions.
Yeah,
You guys have done something which, for lack of another word, it's priceless. Because I think for somebody who comes in and meets an organization like Welkom-U, they get the full package. It's like you get everything that you would probably ever need in Canada.
absolutely, absolutely. That's the goal. Yeah, go ahead, please. Sorry, were you done with
Okay.
your question? Yeah.
No. So one question is, do you help people relocating between provinces in Canada, or is it only for newcomers coming from out of Canada?
Well, so definitely within Canada as well, but we haven't ramped up those operations yet because, I mean, we started officially with customers at the end of 2021. So 2022 was our first full calendar year of working with newcomers. So we definitely have that on our roadmap for sure. But in intra Canada is 100% on our agenda as well. And yes, we've actually had a few customers, especially during COVID, that moved from central Canada or up north down to the east coast, right? So a lot of
Mm.
people moved to New Brunswick towards the end of towards the beginning of 2022, 2021 actually. So yes, we've had customers. We've had customers from inside Canada. I've had customers from outside of Canada as well.
Okay, but the focus is definitely for the ones coming from out of Canada.
Yes, yes, for
Okay.
now, until we have big enough operations to cater for all those different segments.
Okay. How do you help the people who are coming from out of Canada? How do you help them with their personal finance side of things? Because that's one thing which is completely different from out there and in here. And a lot of people come and they don't know anything, and then they end up in like debt.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one because we started some conversations with we started conversations with RBC and Scotiabank. But we've progressed very much conversations with RBC, and they pretty much agreed to be on different webinars and different seminars, even one-on-one sessions actually for newcomers who want to understand what finances are like in Canada. And I didn't realize how important it was myself until I dug deep to understand a whole lot around credit scoring, around financial literacy in Canada, and how to build your finances as a whole. Because I mean, in Nigeria, it was a debit system that I
Yeah.
was coming from, and the debit system doesn't really require so much knowledge because it's you spend what you have,
Yes.
right? But in a credit system is a total new ball game, right? And I mean, for a lot of newcomers as well, it was pretty much they buy things cash out, like so every single thing they buy is with cash, or they're just able to pay one way or the other. But in Canada, realize that the credit system is something that you really have to pay attention to. So we've decided we try to have as much partnerships as possible with financial institutions, and RBC has actually been. This is not definitely not an RBC campaign. We
Hmm.
have we have none of those. We don't have any obligation whatsoever. But they've been one of the very helpful groups, right, that have opened their doors to newcomers. And every question we've had, every concern that we've taken to them has been answered on behalf of customers or even ourselves as as a company trying to run a business in Canada. So things around personal finances, we've had some really good help from those banks.
Okay. Because that's actually the area that I focus on, because personally, my own journey getting into like Sometimes I say this like, wow, $60,000 of personal debt between credit cards and stuff.
Wow.
It's like, how do you get out of that? But
Yeah.
because I went through that phase, I see what it's like, and I see
Yep.
what it's like to not have that obligation. And now, while I look around, I see people still in that place. I'm like, okay, this is something that I actually want to help people with. And so that's something that I'm really, really passionate about. Actually, like, hey, this is what I help people with as well. So it's good that you guys are doing that.
I mean, absolutely. We can definitely connect even after this and see how best we can work together. There's definitely a whole lot. And I mean, obviously, I'm not sure you're aware, but there's 1.5 million newcomers that are expected. So there's a whole lot of people that will be needing these services for sure.
Awesome. I saw this when I was researching you. There's something called the Black Boys Code, which it's a non-profit organization, and you're part of that. Can you talk to me about what that is?
Yeah, so Black Boys Code is a non-for-profit organization that pretty much is targeted at young Black boys between the age of 7 and 14, 15, right, to expose them to science and technology very, very, very early on. And it was pretty much set up because we looked at the trend of a lot of Black boys and in the society, and a lot of people who miss a lot of Black boys who miss their way very early. One of the major reasons why that is the case is because the people they look up to, the people they have access to, um, are sometimes people that are not they're not doing some things legally, right? So
Mm-hmm.
they meet people on the corners selling drugs or starting to deal in gangs, and they also see the luxury life
Yeah.
from people who are maybe in gangs or selling drugs or some very quick money, quick access to money, and it's enticing sometimes because a lot of these people, a lot of these young boys they love these good things, and it's actually not a bad thing, right? To want
Yeah.
to drive nice cars or wear nice shoes, right? So we decided, I mean, of course, the founders decided to create that organization and expose these boys between the age of 7, because 7 to 14 are pretty much your formative years.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you pick up some really good, bad habits, whatever the case is, and have these young boys see what science and technology has done for other Black people within the community. Other young people who have given access, who have been fortunate to have access to learning how to code, learning software development, learning stuff around testing, learning stuff around product development. So that was pretty much the concept behind Black Boys Code, to give access to young boys, um, for them to have people they can relate with, right? So they see a young professional building an app and they're like, oh yeah, we want to be able to do that. Or they see a young professional who can build a game and they want to be able to do that. So it was just pretty much a platform for young Black boys to connect with people in science and technology and also learn from them, right? We have classes twice every month where we teach the young boys coding through gaming. Sometimes, depending on the level of understanding, we also take them through the actual coding. So a lot of them, I mean, I can proudly say at least 10 to 15 boys that are in the Atlantic region can write some really good codes in Python
Wow.
and then oh yeah, so
Wow.
it's super, oh yeah, it's super exciting and also very fulfilling for me because my first ever introduction to computer science and programming was in my first year in university. So I was already at the age of 16, 17, just trying to learn those things. And I I can't imagine how much more I would have done if I had access to those things from 7 or 8 or
Mm-hmm.
age 9, right? So that pretty much just resonates with me so much to just show these kids that if I can do it from the age where I got exposed to these things, then you can definitely even do way more than I can. And you look at other communities and other societies around us, and that's pretty much the age where a lot of the young ones start to pick up their skills and start to develop different interests. right? It's
Right.
like they expose them and they catch them very early. And unfortunately for the Black community, a lot of the exposure that we've been getting at those ages has been to vices, right? So the Black Boys Code is just one of those organizations that's trying to change that narrative and get Black boys to also succeed in science and technology overall.
Wow. Is it all over Canada?
Absolutely. So we have chapters all over Canada actually, and also in the US. So the first chapter in the US just opened in Atlanta, yeah, I believe. Yes. So it's all over Canada, and I'll be happy to share some details with you if you want to put it out for
Yes,
Black boys
please.
who want
Go
to
ahead.
join. Absolutely. Who want to join on our we've had we're closed for the year. We had our last session last weekend, but we have classes every month, twice every month, and we also have an after school program as well. Where, but I mean, of course, because of schedule of parents, sometimes it might be tough to get the boys to join. But on the weekends, we have 2 hours the last two Saturdays of every month, where we teach the boys how to code and just have interactive sessions with them.
Is it a free thing or is it paid?
Absolutely, absolutely, it's
It's
free.
free? Wow.
Yep, it's free. It's free. So all you just have to do is register your boys to join, and we've gotten so many questions about why is it just boys and the the good news. Yeah, the good news is the team is working towards getting the same
For
thing up for
girls.
girls. So yes, in 2023 we'll definitely have something for girls as well. But boys majorly because you look at all the correctional facilities in North America as a whole, and you hear stories of boys who tell you how early on they were exposed to some of these vices that made them end up in those places. And that was a very specific need and a very specific goal to change. So that's pretty much why I started with boys. But hopefully it'll we'll get it up throughout the community as whole and catch our young ones very, very early.
That would be good. But personally, I don't have a problem with just having only boys because I've spoken to, I think 2 episodes ago on this podcast, I was talking to Tracy Barry and she has a thing for grow women leaders. And I was asking her why grow women leaders. And she said, it's not about it's not about that. It's just it's not like a movement for women
Yep,
only. It's just that's the issue that she's trying to solve right now. So I totally get it.
absolutely.
Like you have to pick the
Exactly.
group you're trying to solve a problem for. Right now, you're solving a
Yep.
problem for newcomers, and they could say, "Why just newcomers?" That's the
Yeah,
problem you're trying to
exactly.
solve.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to go into a little bit about your own upbringing because when you're talking, there's a lot of mindset. I hear a lot of mindset positive things that you have, and I'm wondering, like, how did you get, first of all, your entrepreneurial spirit and just this problem solving personality that you have? Are there some things from your childhood that made those possible for you?
Yeah, so I'll say very basic. From my childhood, I'd say the very basic thing was pretty much um, trying to solve issues around. So I mean, I was fortunate to I grew up with my dad and my mom in Nigeria, and my dad always worked with he always worked he was always writing the paper or doing something on his computer, right? He's an analytical chemist. But he always had a computer he was working with. So my brother and I always used to play games on there and just try to play around. And he also really loved different gadgets. So I was like, oh yeah, I'd, I loved the exposure at the time, and um, I decided to go with computer science. At the time, I was not too exposed to software and how much software could do. I just wanted computer science because I mean I was working with computers,
Right.
and yeah, in university, my undergrad, I started learning so much more around I very basic knowledge of software and how much software could do. And the fact that we're on this call right now is because there's an app that somebody wrote software behind, and it's like, wow, okay.
True.
wow, this is something that this can solve. But I honestly was exposed to the theoretical aspect of it more, so I wasn't too keen on it. But everything changed for me in 2016 after I graduated, and I started working with a company called Appzone. It's well, they're now called Core. They rebranded to Core, but they were a financial technology company in Nigeria, and they built solutions for the banks. So all the tier one banks in Nigeria, and honestly, even so many in Africa. A lot of stuff around their card issuance, debit card, credit card, online banking, mobile apps. This company built a whole lot of those things, and I was fortunate enough to be on some of those projects very early on, and I was really curious. I was really curious around how those things were working. So that's pretty much where my love for problem solving or building a product started from. And I was I was 22 when I was sent to Tanzania from Nigeria all by myself to
Hmm.
lead a project with
You're
with
kidding.
oh yeah, for real, 22
Wow.
to lead a project with GT Bank. They were setting up GT Bank, Guarantee Trust Bank, is one of the biggest banks in Nigeria, and they have a lot of presence in Africa as a whole, to set up their card issuance system. And the CEO of GT Bank Nigeria was at the bank himself. He's definitely one of them multi millionaires in dollars for sure. And I was super scared. I was there for about 2 weeks. But before that engagement, before I left Nigeria for that project, I spent every single day from October till actually December 24th, right? The
Hmm.
only day I took off was Christmas and the New Year, just understanding the A to Z of all the products that I was going there
Implement.
to to implement. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you, to implement. And because I definitely didn't want to disappoint my boss. My boss was actually supposed to go on that journey, but she had a bigger project in Nigeria at the time that needed her attention. So they're like, Tosin, you're up next. And I'm like,
Wow.
hey, you know what? I was like, you know what? Fine. So I'll go, but who am I going with? And you're like, you're going all by yourself. And I'm like,
What?
how is this going to work? But I prepared for it, and it was super successful. And that was pretty much one of the boosters that I had, that, oh yeah, you can actually do this. You can actually implement this. You can build a product that would solve problems, because at the time, a lot of the banks in Tanzania didn't have the regular debit cards that have chips. They only had something called the Max Stripe, which is behind the card. So that black line behind most of the debit cards, that was the only form of verification that those cards had, and they were super, super open to a lot of people. There was a lot of fraud going on because they were not secure. They were
Okay.
very, very, very unsecured, and that card was one of the very first with the chip in Tanzania at the time. And we were seeing a lot of it in Nigeria, but in Tanzania, I just felt like this guy just implemented a miracle, and so many people were super, super excited. Like, it went beyond just work project that I had to do, and it was more around, wow, like so much is going to change with this. And
Yeah.
I saw how excited it made people feel, and I figured out that, wow, like the different products that you can build and different solutions that you can build that would change lives, like literally change lives, like literally change lives.
Yes.
That was pretty much where it started from me on the product side. But entrepreneurship was scary because it was way more than a product, right? So you'd have to learn how to manage people, how to manage the corporate society as well, how to price your products, the business angle of it, so many aspects of it. And I pretty much learned so much around that after I got to Canada. But I had subconscious learning going on, because while I was at that company, I worked very closely with one of the founders of the company, and there were a lot of things around the different business deals that they were trying to secure that he'll just tell me about, right? So we live very close to each other. So I used to ride home with him after work, and because there's lots of traffic in Nigeria, for 15
Yes.
minutes drive, we're probably doing 2 hours, and we'll have the whole 2 hours sharing so much knowledge around his business conversation or some business meeting that they had. So I just picked up a lot of those things, not intentionally, right? On how to manage different situations that you can find yourself, some decisions that you have to make on the spot, and how to live with those kind of decisions. And it was just those things. And coming into Canada, the program, my master's program was in technology management and entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And the first ever lecture that I had, the prof asked me, he's actually one of the directors in our company now, but at the time, my professor asked him, it's like, what's your fear? And I was like, oh, fear of failure, not getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, that's nothing, man. He was like, that's nothing. Actually, his words, I'm not sure. He was like, "That's bullshit." It was like, "That's BS." I'm sorry for part of my language. It's like, that's BS.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, it's like, that's BS because people fail. Like every single one of these entrepreneurs fail, and you have to learn. You just have to keep on going because you've identified the problem you want to solve, and there's a solution for it that you're capable of building. And I say, you know what, I'll take this leap. And I started to learn a lot of things around entrepreneurship, and also just prepare myself mentally for the journey ahead, because that's one super, super important aspect that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Um, it takes a whole lot out of you. It takes a lot of sacrifice. Like you have to remember why you wanted to do it in the first place, right? Because there are days where you're gonna wake up and you're like, nah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes.
Or it's not going as planned. That's one thing you need to know, is that entrepreneurship almost never goes as planned,
Yes.
right? A lot of people go to work every day, they already have their deliverables, they already have what they need to do, but there are guys who maybe own those companies that are figuring out what those deliverables should be, and
Yes.
hoping that the result at the end of the day will give them much the value that was forecasted or that was projected. So
Yes.
there's just so much pressure that comes with it, and that's why one of the advice that I give people that are probably just starting, or people that have been, maybe I'm a little further ahead in my journey than, is that you have to remember why you started, because there'll be hard days, and the only thing that can keep you going is two things majorly: is the people that you surround yourself with. So from your co-founders or your mentors, or even your family, depending on how supportive it is that they are. And the
Yes.
second thing is why you started. Those are the only things that can keep you going, because you'll have days where you make really good successes, or you have really good progress, and you have days where you literally see those things crashing down. You're like, oh my God, how do I fix this? Right? Like I've had one of my mentors, and also mentors are super, super, super important, because one of my mentors, one of the most successful people out of Atlantic Canada today, gave me a story of when he had to lay off 200 people because the company was not where it was supposed to be. But of course, he built another company that exited to Salesforce. So they sold the company to Salesforce for,
Mm-hmm.
I think, over 500 million,
Mm.
right? So he had that success story to, he could have stopped after laying off those 200 people, or after the first business crashed, but there's just a whole lot of things that kept him going. And a lot of people that were laid off, thankfully, got really great other opportunities. And it's just pretty much our mental toughness.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful that I got to learn that, and I'm still learning it, because I'm sure there are probably going to be some really hard mountains that we'll need to climb, trying to get to the pinnacle of our success, especially at Welkom-U, and of course the other things that have going on. But yeah, that's a very long answer to your question.
But it answered all the questions I was going to ask after that, because I was going to ask you to talk to somebody who's a few steps behind you and what advice you would give to them. and
Okay.
then what it is that you would pick from everything that you learned, but it ended up being like you surrounded yourself with people from whom you would learn and people who would support you and having the right mentors and all that. Okay.
Absolutely.
I want to close out with one thing that you said in one of your speeches to the Canadian immigrant at the Canadian Immigrant Award thing. You said,
Yeah.
irrespective of your personality type, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
Therefore, you need to get out of your comfort zone and tap into the rich culture of our beautiful country. You're laughing. Please expand on that.
Yeah. I mean, so I was asked to end my end the whole write up with with an original quote, and I'm like, ooh, mm. And then I look back at my story of Welkom-U, and I realized that a lot of the successes we've had have come from me asking people for help, like a whole lot of it, right? We started off. I have a computer science background. I was doing some work around the technology. There was Ife on my team as well. She was also doing a lot of work around technology. But we both realized that the kind of technology we want to build and the level where we need to be, right? We needed somebody who had more expertise on this thing than we did. Um, I've seen so many situations, so many stories where people just keep doing it and keep winging it, right? And don't ask for help.
Mhm.
But I asked for help from one of my old friends that I work with at Appzone. I'm like, look, Ronnie, you have to come and help us build this thing. We acknowledge our shortcoming and I need help from you. And I mean, of course, so many conversations trying to understand the whole concept that we're trying to build. And he came on board, and that's been one of the best decisions we've ever made. With Kilam Apartments, I was introduced to another company with the hopes of having them work with us, but it couldn't help us at the time. And we were at the tail end of that meeting when I asked, I asked Willie, and I'm like, please, can you introduce us to these other company? We know that you guys are in the same industry and they might be able to help. Like, please, do you want to introduce us? And it's like, oh yeah, you know what? I know the vice president. I'll send an email, blah blah blah. And that email went out, and we got a meeting.
Mhm.
And after that meeting, we did a demo, and they're like, yeah, you know what? We'll test this thing out with you guys, and we got that signed on. And right after that, because of how credible they were, every other place we went to for business, it was an easier sell for us, right? All the other companies and all the other people that we were trying to reach out to before they saw that partnership that we had, or before they saw how big this other company were, they now started to give us audience because they're like, okay, well, if those guys will work with you, then yeah, I mean, we too will work with you, right? And I realized that a lot of these things, yeah, a lot of these things were because we're able to ask for help, right? So
Yes.
close mouth, no matter how much, no matter how good you are at your craft, right? If you don't ask for help, or if you don't ask for that one introduction, or just there are a lot of people that wouldn't know. Like, you're just one out of 7 billion other people that are claiming to be good at what they are at. So the
True.
referral system is one thing that works so much. So asking, you almost cannot go wrong, man. You have to ask, and there's so many times I asked for help that it didn't come true. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I'd say every other like the success we've gotten has also come from that, right? So, not staying discouraged if you don't get the results that you desire, right? The one that'll come true will come true. So that was pretty much why I said it. And I mean, of course, I won't make any reference or call any names, but I've seen some other companies go down or stop operating because they didn't ask for any help. Right? They figured out we'll do this on our own, we'll do this the right way, we have the right solution. Why aren't you buying from us? Right? I realize that you have to realize that it's not just around what you can do, right?
Right.
It's what people perceive that you can do, and how much help you can also bring, and how much value, rather, sorry, that you can also bring to those organizations. You have to be able to demonstrate it. And unfortunately, Sometimes your product would not speak for itself. Somebody has to be that evangelist. Somebody has to take that gospel of your product, right, to other people and say, look, I've tried out this guys. And because it is coming from me, because I've built credibility with those people, they would go ahead and buy from you. Right. So that's what I've realized. And that's something that has helped me in Canada as a whole. There are people who have sent emails to who did not respond to me. And I got somebody who was within their network to introduce me to them, and I got quick responses.
Mm.
Right?
Okay.
Nothing about me changed. Nothing about what I know changed.
You
Nothing
just ask for
about
help from the right people.
ask for help from the right people. That's pretty much it. Right? Like the same thing I was going to share with you when I reached out to you directly is the same thing I'm going to share with you when I got this intro. But
Yes.
that intro has been that bridge and that catalyst to giving me your attention. So asking for those things definitely go a long way, and that's pretty much what I tried to summarize in that statement at the end of that write up.
Yeah, irrespective of your personality type, closed mouths don't
Yeah,
get fed, guys. You need to ask for help.
absolutely. So many people have
I loved it.
yeah, so many people have come back to me and they're like, I'm introverted, so how do you do that in this case? And I'm like, unfortunately, if you want to do this, like you have to put aside that introversion, that nature of yours, and you need to ask for help. Like if you don't have, you can't call, send an email, or look for somewhere you can do some soft plan. Even go for networking events and look at the people that are going to be there and pre-plan your questions. Like you can plan around it. It might take you a longer time as an introvert, but you have to do some of those things if you want to be successful in it. Because you can't build a company by yourself,
Yeah.
right? You can't get to some of these goals just by yourself. You need people around you, and you need to knock that nature aside and look, I have to get out of this comfort zone and get what I want. Because at the end of the day, you'll be glad that you took that step and not filled with regrets that, oh, I should have done it, I should have done that. Right? It's easier for you to say, oh yeah, well, I did it and it didn't work.
Yes.
So now you're at peace with the fact that, well, you tried, other than having those regrets. So that's pretty much the whole closed mouths don't get fed part of
Yeah.
it. Like I can eat something today and maybe spit it out, right? Or I may like it.
I
Right,
think it's got even less to do with personality types and more to do with the fact that most people are just afraid of rejection. And so because
yeah,
you think you're going to be rejected, you don't want to go and you hide behind, oh, I'm an introvert. No, you're just afraid of
I-
rejection.
absolutely. And that's something that you need to get used to. You need to understand and you need to let yourself know that the possibility of me getting a no is there. Like the chances of me getting a no is high,
Yes.
but that no is not going to stop me. Like one of my mentors, I've had so many conversations with them, so I'll make references to this, but he says no just means next opportunity, man. Just go to the next opportunity. So NO, next
Yes.
opportunity. So it's not stop. It's not stop trying. Don't do this. It's just this person has said no. Somebody
Okay.
else is going to say
Next
yes. Like
opportunity.
what? Next
That's a good
opportunity.
one.
That's yeah. That's the mentality that I have, and it's not going to change because I've seen results, and it's also good to learn from people around you. I'm sorry, I know we're almost at time, but I'd love to share this.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I always tell very young entrepreneurs that it's super great to look at Steve Jobs, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg. It's great to look at those guys, but the most value would be from somebody who is just one or two steps ahead of you, and not somebody who is 10,000 steps ahead of you. Because the problems you're facing right now, maybe when they faced it, the solutions they had were different, right? So
Mhm.
you might want to speak to somebody who is 20, 30 years in the game, and because this is how they solve the problem, you also want to go that way and solve that problem. But the world has evolved, things have changed, right? There's somebody who solved that problem 1 year ago or 2 years ago, right? The way they went about it will be way more relevant to you than somebody who did it 20, 30 years ago, right? So that's also something that I tell a lot of people is like, look, oh, I had some legal issues with this co-founder, or I had this, and the guy from 20 years ago is like, oh yeah, I took him straight to court. right?
Hmm.
And maybe the legal cost at the time was 20, $30. And right now you have to spend like 10, 15 grand, right? And
Yes.
the guy who just solved it now is saying, oh wow, well, we just did a vesting period, or we just did something just something very small, something that is easy that you can achieve as that very early stage founder. But you're looking at a guy that's been 50 years in the game and trying to mirror exactly what he's doing. It's great to learn from their experiences, their success stories. But the day to day, I always look at guys who started their company a year or 2 years before me and are still successful and are still striving. Those are the guys I learn from the most, because you're just following them like very closely. Like the distance is not too far off, right? So you can understand and see um, what they have going on.
That was a very great tip. And one of my mentors actually says just model success. So you're finding now it's who are you modeling? You're modeling those people who are a few steps ahead of you, which is priceless. Because most people are always looking at, say, for example, somebody wants to be a speaker, they're looking at Tony Robbins now.
Yeah.
But you need to look at Tony Robbins from 20 years ago or look at the people who are there right now. Like,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
priceless tip.
Yep.
Awesome. So, last thing for you then, where do you find your clients? And if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to connect with you or your company for help?
So frankly speaking, we've served over 100 plus customers, and a whole lot of it has been from referrals and word of mouth. We've not done, it's been organic since we started, and that has been super exciting for us because 2023 is pretty much one of our scale up years. All our strategic objectives this year is to blow the whole thing up as much as we can. So a lot is going to go into marketing and public relations this year.
Mhm.
So you'll be seeing a whole lot of ads, a whole lot around Welkom-U, and we have our MVP, so our Welkom-U app 1.0. I currently have it on my phone right now, and I give a sneak peek. It's going to be in the app stores
Wow.
very soon. So you'll be able to reach us on your mobile device. Yep. So you'll be able to reach us on a mobile device, and you can always go to the website and send an email to us. I'm not sure if
Bring it
it's here.
closer.
There we go.
Okay.
So you can actually create a journey,
Okay.
right, on all the different things you need. So you want to buy a car when you get here, whatever your journey is like as a newcomer, you can create that on the app, and all the different service providers and services you need will be made available to you. And so yeah, that's pretty much one of the ways. Mobile app on your phone.
So the
You
app
can
is
always send us.
Welkom-U.
Yep, welcome
Welcome with a
you.
K. I'll put all the links in the
Welcome.
description below, guys.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, so welcome with a K. That's going to be on the Android and iOS app stores latest by the 10th of January 2023. And you can always send us an email. We have the contact us form um, on the website. LinkedIn is also one area. Social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all welcome_you. That's what the handles are. And in no time, you have somebody reach out to you and provide the services that are required to you.
Absolutely amazing. So Welkom-U is WELKOM underscore U, the letter U.
Yep.
WELKOM underscore the letter U. And I'm
Yep.
going to put all of those links in the description below. If you're going to be listening to this on the podcast, it's in the show notes. On YouTube, it's in the description. And please, guys, go ahead and follow, like, subscribe. And once that app is available, go and download it. It's a priceless app, guys. I haven't even looked at it, but I've looked at the website and just that journey alone. If I had that when I got here, my goodness, I don't know where I would be right now. So, as usual, we bring you people who would share their stories, their experiences, their personal journeys, and the ways that they help the community. So please check out Welkom-U and please check out Black Boys Code and register your sons, 7 to 14 years old. That's what we need right now. Thank you so much, Tosin.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Super excited to chat with you for sure.
Put yourself into places where you don't know. everything about it. And what I mean by that is there are those of us who get up every day and we have our coffee at this time, we get into the car, we drive to this office, we come back home, we pick up our kids, then we walk the dog, it's the same thing. You might not notice it, but you really are just doing the same thing every day.